Valeria Missalina was the wife of the Roman Emperor Claudius from 41 to 54 AD. Missalina was so insanely depraved that her name became a byword. This woman shocked even the Romans with her filthy fantasies, although their morals were far from pure in those times. Instead of setting an example for her subjects, Missalina disgraced the title of Empress with her behavior and descended into complete madness in her depravity. With her lovers, Missalina controlled Claudius as she wished. Her weak-willed husband obeyed her in everything. In addition to her monstrous depravity, Missalina was known for her cruelty and complete lack of compassion. The slightest resistance to her vile desires always led to death. Thus, by her order, Julia, Claudius' sister, was deprived of life and he was sent into exile. The philosopher Seneca, condemned for an illicit affair with the empress, was deprived of life, and the patrician Appius Silanus was killed for rejecting Missalina's unworthy advances. By inviting beautiful Roman matrons to the imperial palace, Missalina organized sordid orgies, at which they were required to be present and witness their own disgrace. The husbands of the unfortunate victims who refused to endure this moral torment were killed without any mercy. Those who accepted the invitation and became accomplices in these orgies were generously rewarded by Missalina. And before you find out what happened next, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you don't miss new strange and scary stories, and subscribe to the Strashnodi Telegram channel. The link is below the video. One of Missalina's lovers, namely Lucius Vitellius, as a special honor, received from Emperor Claudius the right to remove the stockings from his wife's legs. All these filthy indecencies, of course, caused general indignation against Claudius and his wife, and soon led to conspiracies aimed at replacing the emperor. The commander of the troops in Dalmatia, Camillus Scribonius, started a rebellion and wrote a threatening letter to Claudius, for which he was removed from command and later took his own life. Scribonius's letter greatly frightened the cowardly Claudius. He ordered the strictest investigation to be conducted. All those involved in the conspiracy were executed. During that unfortunate time, many noble Roman citizens and matrons perished. Some of those brought in for the investigation took their own lives. And Pia, the wife of Paetus, plunged a dagger into her chest and, pulling it out, handed it to her husband with these words, "Take it, my dear, it doesn't hurt at all." Thus, even during the reign of the feeble-minded Claudius, who by nature was not at all cruel, blood flowed like a river. The reason for this was the boundless depravity of the heartless Messalina, and of course the feeble-mindedness of Emperor Claudius, who turned a blind eye to all his wife's actions. Missalina did whatever she wanted. For example, she liked the gardens of Valerius Asiaticus, and she unceremoniously ordered him to be put to death. The heirs of Valerius, knowing Claudius's insanity, didn't even think of protesting against this outrageous fact. Like Valerius Asiaticus, many eminent and very worthy citizens perished. Missalina was truly a scourge of decency, nobility and virtue, a disgrace to all womankind. Not content with the orgies she held in her palace, she also had the habit of wandering the streets of Rome late at night in search of adventure, visiting the filthiest dens, and sometimes even sharing the dirty beds of prostitutes. It is difficult and distressing to recount all the outrages committed by the wife of Emperor Claudius, says the historian. And it is hard to convey them all, we are only noting a few facts. For example, one of the palace dancers named Mnester had the misfortune of attracting the empress's attention. She offered him her love, but Mnester, fearing Claudius's anger, refused to return her feelings. Then Messalina complained to her husband that Mnester was not obeying her. Claudius summoned Mnester and ordered him to absolutely obey the empress. Naturally, he followed Claudius's order and openly became Messalina's lover. One of the follies of this immoral woman became the cause of Messalina's downfall. The young patrician Gaius Cilius, one of the most handsome youths in Rome, caught Messalina's eye. Messalina's passion for Cilius completely clouded her judgment. She would publicly visit the patrician's house, shower him with every possible honor, and reward him generously. Finally, despite the fact that she was
the wife of Claudius,
while he was still alive, she decided to marry Cilia. Messalina ordered that Emperor Claudius's slaves, furniture, various valuables and other things be sent to Cilia's house. What is most striking is that Messalina decided to openly celebrate her wedding to patrician Cilia and to sign a marriage contract. Many courtiers would sign it as witnesses, including Emperor Claudius himself. Messalina's audacity reached the point where she dared to personally slip her marriage contract with Cilia to her husband for him to sign. With his characteristic lack of understanding, Claudius signed as a witness to Messalina's marriage to Cilia and then left for a while to the port of Ostia. That same night, Messalina, dressed in a bridal gown, solemnly offered sacrifices to the gods to ensure happiness in her marriage. Then guests were invited to the palace for the wedding feast. At the table, Messalina sat next to her young husband, and after the feast she solemnly went to Cilia's house with him. All this might seem like a fairy tale if it weren't for the testimony of contemporaries, among whom was the historian Tacitus. He speaks of Messalina's wedding as a fact that is hard to believe, but which proves the complete insanity of Emperor Claudius and the madness of the brazen Messalina. Of all the citizens of Rome, only Claudius did not know what his worthy wife was up to. Meanwhile, the courtiers and especially the freed former slaves began to seriously worry. The emperor, upon later learning about Messalina's antics, could become angry with them for not reporting such a scandalous affair to him. After consulting among themselves, the courtiers decided to report everything to the emperor. Narcissus was the first to inform Claudius, and then 2 more courtiers arrived from Rome to Ostia. And falling to their knees before the emperor, they told him that Cilius had already married Messalina, and that she promised to raise him to the imperial throne. All of Rome was horrified. Claudius was very frightened. It seemed to him that he had already been overthrown. And then, as if on purpose, Narcissus confirmed everything he had heard and advised the emperor to take care of his own safety. Claudius was completely terrified and didn't know what to do. Even in the soldiers' camp, he didn't feel completely safe and kept asking those around him who was the emperor, him or Sirius. Meanwhile, Messalina, drunk with passion, lived peacefully in Sirius's house, as if all was normal. She planned a masquerade at Sirius's house, inviting all her favorites. The celebration took place in the garden. Cilius was crowned with a luxurious wreath, and Messalina led the chorus of bacchantes. Among the guests was a physician named Vetsi Valent, who also enjoyed Messalina's favor. Entertaining himself with the bacchantes, the physician got the idea to climb one of the tallest trees in the garden. Naturally, this prank was ignored by everyone. Vetsi suddenly shouted that a storm was approaching from Ostia's direction. Indeed, a storm was coming. Claudius was en route to avenge his disgrace. Hearing this terrible news, all the guests scattered in every direction. Missalina ran to the gardens of Lucullus, and Cilius hid in the forum. Missalina understood that she was in danger, but she still hoped to avert disaster. When meeting with her husband, Claudius Missalina, more than once she had managed to calm her husband with caresses and reassurances, and to avoid all kinds of dangers. She planned to meet her husband upon his arrival in Rome, took her children Britannicus and Octavia with her, invited the old Vestal Vibilia, and set out to meet her husband. She walked alone through the city after being abandoned by her favorites in a moment of danger. Near the gates she saw the imperial procession approaching from afar. The first to see Messalina was Narcissus, who was riding near Claudius's chariot, and he did everything he could to prevent the emperor from hearing his wife's pleas. Meanwhile, Messalina noticed Narcissus's maneuver and began to shout loudly that Emperor Claudius was obliged to listen to the mother of Britannicus and Octavia. Narcissus in turn raised his voice and announced all of Messalina's crimes. But since the procession was moving forward, the emperor's chariot finally approached Messalina, who was trying to push the children forward. She was unable to do this. The Vestal Virgin Vibilia boldly approached the emperor's chariot and began to vigorously defend Messalina. She told Claudius that he should not listen to slander against his wife, that Messalina had many enemies who were trying to destroy her. Narcissus loudly objected to this, saying that the emperor could listen to his wife, but it was completely improper for his Vestal Virgin to act as her defender. Claudius remained silent all this time and was completely indifferent, as if the whole story did not concern him at all. Upon arriving in Rome, Narcissus immediately invited him to the house of Cilia, where the emperor could see with his own eyes that Missalina had ordered all the luxurious furniture to be moved from the palace. Claudius, following Narcissus's advice, accompanied him to Cilia's house. He confirmed Narcissus's truth upon seeing that Cilia's house was adorned with palace furniture. He became extremely furious and immediately ordered the execution of Cilia and all of Missalina's lovers. On the same day, Cilia was summoned to the tribunal. The facts confirming his connection with the emperor's wife were obvious, and he was sentenced to death. Cilia requested a brief postponement of his execution, which was granted. He did not defend himself. After some time, he and many senators and knights involved in this shameful affair were executed. Cleson Mnester was also brought in as a defendant, but he defended himself by saying that the emperor himself had personally ordered him to obey Missalina. At first, Claudius seemed to take Mnester's words into account and wanted to pardon him, but those close to him insisted that Mnester should also be executed, along with the others. Messalina was hiding in the gardens of Lucullus. She was thinking of ways she could appease her enraged husband. Knowing his lack of character and weakness for her, she was convinced that Claudius would soon turn his anger into mercy. And indeed, Claudius's anger cooled down considerably. During dinner, he spoke about Missalina without malice, even calling her poor thing. Hearing these words, Narcissus realized that he needed to act quickly and decisively so that his own head wouldn't roll off his shoulders. Circumstances could change. If Claudius managed to see his wife, she would present the situation to him in a completely different light. Under the influence of these thoughts, Narcissus immediately went to the centurions of the guard and informed them that Emperor Claudius had ordered Messalina to be put to death at once. This terrible mission was undertaken by a certain Evatus who went to the gardens of Lucullus, where he found Messalina lying on the grass. An elderly mother stood near her daughter, having come to her side during a time of misfortune despite their prior distance. And, as a true Roman woman, she began to advise her not to wait for a shameful execution, but to take her own life. But Missalina did not listen to her mother's advice. She wept bitterly, complained, and wrung her hands in despair. Armed men suddenly entered the garden. Missalina then realized it was all over for her. With a trembling hand, she took a knife and struck her throat and chest. Lacking the willpower to end her life, she only wounded herself. One of the tribunes helped her leave this life with a blow from his sword. Missalina's body was left to her mother. At that time, a banquet was in full swing at the palace. During the feast, Claudius was informed that Missalina had taken her own life with her own hands. After hearing this report, Claudius continued to drink wine and enjoy himself with complete indifference. The Senate helped Claudius forget Missalina by destroying all her portraits and busts.